And the first is Process Excellence with our friends Nancy Grace Starkey-Baum and Scott Datt.
Yay, Nancy. Thank you all so much. It's been really interesting for our group to sit here and listen to all of the fantastic ideas and innovative thoughts and creativity that you've all come up with. But we have one thing to say to you, and that is that process excellence is the foundation of credibility. It's the foundation upon which our credibility as an organization or as an industry is built. And right now, we think that that's a problem. And let me ask you this. You've got some money to invest because you just won the lottery. Would you invest in a company that's manufacturing a product that has no repeatable methodology for building that product? Would you invest in that?
No.
No. Would you invest in a company and some entrepreneurs who've had some wins, who run their business on intuition, and can't tell you how they plan on repeating those wins in the future?
Maybe.
That's the wrong answer.
He's got a lot of extra money.
Would you allow a customer to place an order today for delivery tomorrow when you don't even have the raw materials in the door with which to manufacture that product? Would you allow that to happen? And here's my final one. Would you invest in a company where... Sorry, I got to read my cheat sheet back here. Would you invest in a company where their lack of process may cause them to have to pay a competitor for delivering the same product into their organization? Now, so this is part of our fundamental challenge that we have with credibility. And while it's great that we think about all of these wonderful things that we could do and cool technology and use our intuition, which I think is inherent in most recruiters, we do ourselves a big disservice by not paying attention to the fundamentals of process, by which we will finally become a credible function within the context of an enterprise. And that's a lot of what we talked about today. And one of the members of our group is Alice McCabe from Hager Clothing, and she's responsible for all HR organizations within that function. And she's going to give us an example of what our lack of process does to her as an HR leader when she has to go in front of the C-suite and talk about recruiting.
All right. Good afternoon. I told somebody I felt kind of like I was drinking from a fire hose this morning. So I think it's a lot of great information. I'm really happy to be here, and but I feel like I'm probably one of the least prepared people to talk, but I certainly can talk about, from my perspective, recruiting is kind of a new ownership issue with me. I came up in the comp and benefit side of the house, but I certainly have been in the C-suite, and I know what it's like to be called on the carpet for benefit costs. You know, healthcare costs have gone up over my entire career. And so I have a process, and I'm well prepared when I go to talk to my CEO about our healthcare costs. Same thing with risk management. I also handle that aspect of the business. And so I think when I look at recruiting, and that's the fundamental reason I'm here today, is to make sure that we have the right process in place at Hager Clothing Company so that we have the right talent, the right people at the right place and the right time. And I'm hoping to get some good feedback and points. But I think when I look at it as an HR professional, we have to be perceived as not bureaucratic. Our process cannot be something that's holding up the process, so to speak, but actually bringing in the results. And if we're disciplined in our approach to it, that even when we get poor results, we at least have followed the process that we believed was going to get the results. And if our senior management team understands the process and buys into it, then you're a partnership and you're not just out on a limb on your own. And there's just so many wonderful, great ideas that we shared today. But process maybe sound a little boring, but I think it's a fundamental discipline that we have to bring to bring the results and be successful.
What we're tackling this afternoon, this is the advertisement. Why they send me to do the advertising, I don't know. It wouldn't be my choice to advertise the session. But staffing is a recurring business process. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Could you use the microphone, please?
Yes. Staffing's a recurring business process. And over time, the business units, our customers that we serve, expect that recurring business process to have a declining cost and a more reliable output. Fair?
No.
Yes.
No?
No, I don't know why necessarily you have to have a declining cost and an increased output over time for repetitive activity if you want to continue to increase the quality of the output. It doesn't, you could have the same cost and a higher quality over time. You don't necessarily have to have a lower cost over time.
Well, there's difference between acquisition cost and cost of identifying talent and process cost, cycle cost.
Right.
So what we see is that most business units are held accountable for operating more efficiently and in a more reliable fashion over time. I think that's the world they live in. There are customers, and what we hear a lot from the customers is that the perception is that costs are escalating over time in staffing, and it's a less reliable process. Now we can look, and what we struggled with was it's harder to find people, right? So that's why we can say the costs are going up and the output's less reliable. But the fact of the matter is that this is the largest workforce in the history of the U.S. economy, right? It's also the most mobile workforce in the history of the U.S. economy. And candidates are more visible than they've ever been. So what we're tackling this afternoon is just the reality, the perception with business units is reality. If we spend all this money on technology, if candidates are more mobile than ever, why is this process less reliable and we continue to get asked for more money? We think some of the opportunity is investing the same type of excitement and time that we invest in education, the next big idea, and technology in managing today, managing execution today. And that's not as big on the radar screen of many staffing professionals, or doesn't hold the same level of intensity as the customers that we serve. And that was the consensus of our group. So our problem statement is, how do you, given the environment that we've talked about, make, through process rigor and management discipline, process discipline, this output more reliable and the process costs more efficient over time? Nancy?
And the only thing that I was going to add to that was the other reason why this is extremely important to all of you who've had creative and innovative ideas and are thinking about maybe investing in technology or coming up with a new technology is that one of the problems in our industry is we burn through technology at a very rapid pace. We have the next new great idea, and you'll get companies who will try it. But because, by and large, we do not have the process rigor or the process excellence, we cannot take that technology and embed it into our organization in such a way that it produces a return on the investment and that you as a technology owner can get a repeat sales the next year. Because we can never, we can't embed the discipline. Every time you add a new idea or a new technology into our business, we try it, it's the flavor of the month, and then we go back to our old ways. Because we don't have the discipline to do things in a repeatable manner. And I think that's why this should be, a compelling problem for everybody in our industry. And I don't know about you, but I'd really like to have some credibility the next time I go and stand in front of a CFO and talk about talent inside an organization. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here is I want to see how we as an organization, or as a group of individuals, increase our credibility. And not any Tom, Dick, or Harry can be a recruiter. Yeah, Susan? Yeah, Harriet.
Nancy, can you talk a little bit about how you build flexibility into that model? Because there's a fine balance between having process and discipline, but having enough flexibility so that as you have international offices and to have people in Europe doing it the same as people in Asia, doing it the same as people in the U.S., let alone in the U.S., and having people in New York doing it the same as people in California. So how are you guys factoring in enough flexibility that gives that process some give to it?
You know, we had an interesting discussion about this, and I come from an HR background as an HR generalist a long time ago. And we're talking about HR and how HR has a specific discipline that they have to follow. It really messes up people's lives, right? You can't screw up when you enter the data into the HRIS, or somebody's not going to get paid, or they're not going to get their benefits. And we often look at recruiting processes through an HR mindset, which says that you have to follow this exactly, every step, the same way every time in order to keep your employees comfortable. Well, you know what? We don't have to have that same rigor in our recruiting process. We have to be 80% right. We have to have a process that 80% of the time works, and then we can flex within it. And I think the other part of it, too, is defining what that process is. So there's a sourcing process, and you define the sourcing process to fit your business. There's a pre-qualification process, and again, you define it to fit the needs of your business or your business unit. There's some type of interview process that's going to happen. And you have to, so you define the components. But right now, what I'm seeing from different organizations that I've been working with is they don't have even those basic processes. So they're still having recruiters that think they're recruiters who are really just resume brokers. And they're having the hiring managers select the resumes for them to pre-qual. So I think there's a lot of education that has to be done, and we have to keep in mind that we are unlike any other business function, and that part of what our challenge is to build that flexibility into it, because unlike finance and unlike marketing, we are expected to turn on a dime. And we have to build systems and processes that allow us to do that. That's part of our responsibility.
I think one of the biggest challenges is shifting the paradigm of the people, or the mindset in here, because when you think, we have some people from Starbucks here, right? Okay. Process drives mass customization. Is there a process that governs what goes on behind the counter at Starbucks? And I go to Starbucks all the time, and I've never heard that people order the same thing twice. Every order's different, except mine. You know, a grande drip. You don't really need a process if everybody's coming in ordering a grande drip. But you better get process-oriented in the world of mass customization, and that's what we live in.
So I think this is a very important, interesting topic. I was curious if the group talked about, I think you've defined the problem well. What are the primary causal factors? Is it we don't invest in recruiter training? Did you guys come up with a top 3 list of like why we're at the state we're in, where every time you go to a show, it's the same recruiting 101 class, and there never seems to be a recruiting 102 class? Like, did you talk about the why and how we fix it?
You know, we didn't talk about it a lot. Scott and I have had conversations about it, and part of it is it's inherent in those of us who are in the recruiting industry, right? Look at everybody in this room. We're a bunch of individualists. There's a lot of creative people here. There's a lot of innovative people. I mean, it's kind of like herding cats to get us to do the same thing in a repeatable manner. And I think that's part of it, is that we have to understand and we have to educate ourselves as business people why the process is important. And we have to understand the rewards that we get out of it. If you've ever taken a recruiter and you've taught them how to go and make a compelling business case with a hiring manager, and the light goes on their head and they go, oh my God, that felt so great, I didn't get my butt kicked. And that's all about it. I'll give you a real example of this. You have somebody who gets a $10 million budget to go and build a new product or to go do something, and they've got to do it quickly, and they tell you, gosh, I've got to hire 30 people in 30 days. And normally as recruiters we go, okay, fantastic, let me get started on that, knowing that we're never going to achieve it. We have to instill the discipline and give them the tools to say, well, wait a minute, what did you budget for that? And when they say, well, I didn't budget anything, you say, okay, well, you've got a problem. Gosh, how are you going to solve that? And you talk them through the steps, right? In that scenario, we could deliver all the candidates that we wanted to, and that business would never be able to process them and hire them within the 30 days. So we have to teach our people how to give that dose of reality. And you do that through a business process. And your customers start to love you because you've now been able to tell them how you're going to deliver on it. And when you've got the process, you can actually deliver to those results, and it's a beautiful thing. But most recruiters have never had that, and I think that's why, why we've resisted process as an organization for so long.
Nancy, can I just
One more question.
So just one point, and maybe it speaks a little bit to beyond kind of our individualist nature and creativity, why it is hard to build process. I think when I think about the example of standing in front of the CEO and talking about why comp benefits have gone up or why healthcare costs have gone up, if I put myself in that situation, I'd much rather stand in front of a group and talk about those things where I feel the data is just, it's like out there, it's much more verifiable. If I was managing a call center of 200 people that I had to hire for, and I knew there was a candidate pool and it was I could build this streamlined process where I can just have this flow, I'd much rather stand in front of the CEO. But if I worked for a company with a skill set that had zero unemployment, and I built the best process in the world, I think it would be good for the company, but I still think I'd be standing in front of the CEO at times saying, I'm sorry that we don't have enough talent to meet all the company's needs, because I can hire 100 sourcers and they can be out there searching for them, and they can hit a point where there's a month where they just don't find the talent.
And I think we've all been there. But how beautiful would it be able to stand in front of the CEO and say, here's my plan. I know that I need to review 10,000 resumes, so I'm going to do these activities, and each one of these activities is going to net me so many resumes. And once I've done that, here's how many that I'm going to have to pre-qual and do technical interviews. And your managers, by the way, here's what they're going to be interviewing, and here's many hours that's going to take out of the business. So I need to make sure that you've set that aside when you've planned their business activity. And if we do that, then I'm confident that 80% of the hire needs are going to be met, right? And we can have those metrics. We can do that. People do that, who get it. But that's, while I can't 100% guarantee that you're going to make the hires, I should be able to guarantee that I'm going to deliver qualified candidates to the specs that you have given me. Or I should be saying, you know what? This isn't going to happen. There aren't that many qualified people, so you need to change your business model. Okay? We go through that in the gaming industry, right? If you need senior software engineers, are really, really difficult to find in the gaming industry because it's such a young industry. But far better for me to tell the game team that they better have a better plan than just me hiring 10 senior software engineers, at an okay salary. Tell them that they're not going to be able to do that. It's not going to happen this year. Then for them to plan and invest all that money in going forward, and then finding out at the 11th hour that I can't deliver. Does that make sense?
No, it is a paradigm shift, because there is an instance right now where the VP of sales might want to sit down in front of the CEO and say, we just didn't make sales this month. It's unacceptable. There is going to be a point in time, and there's a point in time many of you are dealing with right now where what you're getting is, did everything I could, but I couldn't get the people. Well, what we're hearing more and more is unacceptable. How are you managing the process? I'm not going to write you another check for more technology. We're not doing more career fairs. What are you doing to run the operation? So that's what we're trying to spend some time on.
Can I ask one really quick question?
Yes.
It seems part of the problem is you spend, like $1 million to put your ads up on Monster, then you spend another $1 million to put these ATS systems in place that no one can get through with their resumes. Isn't that part of the problem? Is that you've got?
That's actually okay.
It's
That's a feature, not a bug.
We're gonna tackle that this afternoon. So some of our feeling is, in most business environments, you're mired in the minutia of the process execution, and out of that comes enabling technology. In recruiting, many times it's done the exact opposite. Let's think about a cool technology, or what's the next whiz-bang thing, and we're doing that, and we're not living in the practical reality of today, in executing today. So process improvement leads you to enabling technology that brings breakthrough thinking, we think. So.
First of all, I want to thank Nancy and Scott. That also want to point out that when I walked into this room, Scott said, "Oh, we only need a couple of minutes." So everybody's got their own opinion about why there's no recruiting 102. My opinion about why there's no recruiting 102 is because the incentive inside a corporate recruiting department is to spend as much money as you can. Because you win based on growing your budget, not on growing a P&L. So that might be an interesting way to think about it for the future.